Hello, first-time coders. Before we go any further, we would like to say our congratulations to people in Saudi Arabia for their National Day. May your country continue to prosper. Today, we would like to talk about input and outputs in Python. So let's start our Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so we need to understand that whenever you are taking input from the user for processing, you have to decide what data type it is. For strings, taking strings as input, we collect them directly using input. For example, we will say x equals to input, and then you just run the code and you get your input box. So you get any input. You can print the input to see what you have. But the problem is the user doesn't know what the input is for. To solve this problem, we can easily just add a prompt message, a message to tell the user what the input is. For example, if you go to sign in at Google, you get this message, so you know that this wants your email or phone number. All right? So the same thing, we need a prompt message to tell the user what to do. So enter string. We leave this extra space so that the input doesn't mix with the message. So if you type you can see that extra space we left. Now if you run this, this is what you get. So how do we add an input if it is an integer? To collect input from the user, if it is an integer, you use the same keyword input. So y equals to input. If you run this and you get the input, if we check the type, we would see that the type of y is still string. So that means whatever input you get using the keyword input will automatically be a string. You have to convert it to integer. So we use the keyword int to convert the input to an integer. So now if we run this and we put 12, if we try to get it, you see now it's an integer. The same thing applies for float. So if we have an input, so you can see that we have, if we check the type, we have a string. So we have to convert it to a float using the float keyword. If you ask the type, you can see it's now a float. Okay, now how can we print it? We have been using the keyword print to print out outputs. So for example, we can say, all right, print by just printing this way. Or we just print them all in the same line by saying x, y, z. Another thing we can do is we can add more beauty to the code. For example, if I have an input like x equal to 3 divided by 4.25, and then I say print, you would see that I have so many numbers. I can choose to approximate this to 2 different places. We can do this with the help of formatted printing. How do we do that? Well, the first thing we do is we take our message that we want to print, and then we put all the numbers that we want to, all the variables that we want to print in a bracket. The next thing is we separate these numbers with a %sign from the formatting itself. So our formatting is going to be placed here, and the actual variables that we want to print will be placed here. Then for every value you have here, you put the format. So for X is a string, so I will use %s. For Y, it is an integer, right? Y is an integer, so we are going to use %d. And for Z, because Z is float, of course we know Z is float, we are going to use %f. So if you run this, you can see everything is in place. But we want to add some few messages into this input. So what do? We add the message inside our format. So for example, we can put a comma here, and we can say, for example, X is equal to. Now the computer comes, when it sees this X, it will print it will print the equal sign, but when it sees a %sign, it knows that formatting is coming next. So it takes the next alphabet, which will tell it that, look, I'm trying to format a string. So it knows that since this is the first time I'm seeing a %sign, then the first item in the list of outputs will be, in the list of variables, will be my variable to be formatted. So it will take this X, it will format it as string, and then it will display it. Then it says %d. Since this is the second time it's seen something, then it will format this Y. But we need to add some message here. We'll say Y is equal to, and then when it sees Z, it knows that it is a float. When it sees this %f, it knows that since this is the third time I'm seeing a % and an alphabet, then it's for Z. Then the F is telling me that it is float, so I'm going to format it as a floating number. So we can add extra message here. Now we can run it. You can see the message is displayed as well as the data type. So let's approximate this floating point number. To do that, we can just add some more information here. We can tell the computer, after the decimal point, approximate to 2 decimal places. So you can see we have 2 decimal places. We can even display some the number of digits we need. So we can say, all right, we want 10 digits to be displayed, but I am only interested in the space for the make a space for 10 digits, but I want only 2 decimal places. So if you run this, you can see it will create space for 10 digits. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then it specifies 2 decimal places. We can do the same for the integer. We can say, oh, the integer should be spaced in 10 spaces should be reserved for this integer. So if you run this, you can see that 10 spaces are reserved for the integer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this specificity is comes in handy if you want to arrange numbers. For example, if you are printing a check and balance sheet, or you are printing some numbers that you want to be aligned. So for example, if I take this, let's remove the string. If I remove the string, then I have to remove the variable for the string. I can add new line here so that the next value will come in the next line. So if you run this, you can see that the two variables, I have to remove this space. So if you run this, you can see the two variables are aligned. Okay, thank you for listening, and see you next time.